All right, everybody, welcome back to the Rutgers Rant, or I'd like to call it. I've got a new name for the podcast, not the Positivity Podcast. We've used that one. We're past that one. I think we should now call it the Not the Worst Team in the Big Ten Podcast. What do you think? It's got a ring to it, right? It's kind of, you know, catchy.
I like it. I was gonna pitch in exceeding very, very, very low expectations podcast.
Clearing the low bar. That's it. The Clearing the Low Bar pod. Let me start over, everybody. Hey, everybody. Welcome into the Clearing the Low Bar podcast. I'm Steve Plitti, your host, here with Brian Fonseca to talk about Scarlet Knights, not the worst team in the Big Ten. I believe this strongly. I think we have seen evidence to support that our fear, the great fear here that this team was not going to win a big game, overblown, and was not going to compete in the Big Ten. All right. I mean, I think that, at this point, they have two Big Ten wins, and they haven't played the two worst teams in the Big Ten, Maryland and Penn State. So I think there is some hope. There's some feeling that this will not be the worst team in the Big Ten. Do you agree?
As of right now, Rutgers has a 2-game cushion over last place in the Big Ten. Yes. 2 games when you're battling for to not finish in last place, that's a big difference. Now, what I will say is the bar was so low, it was on the floor, right? So they will not go over. They will not be historically bad, right? You get 2 Big Ten wins, you're not going to be these teams that people look back on like, woof, that was really bad.
Right.
They're in good position to not finish last. We can debate the merits of whether it matters if you finish 18th or 15th, but the reality is, unless Rutgers gets swept in those 4 games against Maryland and Penn State, which I am not ready to take that out of the realm of possibility, but unless that happens, this team is in position to finish probably 16th. I think 14th is the absolute ceiling, right. But it's looking exceedingly more unlikely that Rutgers finishes in last place, which is, I mean, it's better than women's basketball, I guess.
I'm taking it out of the realm of possibility. I do not think this team will finish last. I think this team is better than the teams below it currently. I think it's proving that it's got some pieces. I think they're finally figuring out how to use those pieces, and by they I mean Steve Peichel. Look, and I wrote down I was going to say 4 nice things about this program, this team right now. And the first one was, and it's a joke, but I mean that sincerely. Like it was, they're not the worst team in the league. We thought they could be historically bad. Looks like it's not going to be the case. Not looks like it's not going to be the case. Number one. Number 2 is like I think Tariq Francis is an all rookie Big Ten player. I really do. I've come completely around to him. If he was on that team last year, I think they might have been NCAA tournament team. I really think. How you like that? I really think that he is a good player.
He's a good player. The brakes. You are falling off of an enormous cliff.
I'm not done yet. Wait, I'm still teetering. I'm not off this cliff yet, pal. I'm waiting to jump with these next couple ones, because my next one is that Darren Buchanan, who we have been critical of, to say the least, on this very podcast, that he was not a Big Ten player. He can play on my Big Ten team. I've come around to him. I like he is maturing into an all-around player. That block to end the game against Northwestern was one of the best recent defensive plays that you've seen in that situation, to not foul him, to go up and get that ball. He looks good. He's figuring it out. That's all you can ask for these guys. Started out poorly, shaky. I still love the step back 20-footers. I get it. There's things about his game that are a little frustrating. He's better, from 18 feet than he is from 2 feet, but that is not a new Rutgers phenomenon. We've had players like that here in the past. It's frustrating. And then the last thing, by far, my feeling on this, that this makes this one of the breakthrough things for Rutgers basketball. Winning games on the free throw line. Holy crap. We've never seen that. I mean, we've gone on how many years of watching free throws brick off. I'm picturing Rashad Kent. I'm picturing guys from the 90s bricking free throws. Finally, they're winning games in the free throw line, getting to the line. There's like a strategy. There's like a possibility here. You've just been waiting. I'm going to keep talking because you've got this look in your face like you're like starting to turn pink. You want to just come over and beat the crap out of me. I'm going to let you do it now. I'm just going to back off. Those are my 4 nice things. Come on. I'm ready.
It's one thing to be the positivity podcast. You are in toxic positivity. You are in the rare corners of the fan base that nothing could go wrong. And you're just dying to take a silver lining and turn it into this like I don't blame you. Listen, we're all looking for straws to grasp. I get it. I'll go one by one. The first part, I agree with you. This team is not Eddie Jordan bad, which is what we thought they would be. And to their credit, they're not Eddie Jordan bad. Eddie Jordan doesn't come close to winning those games, right? And we can argue about the talents as well. I'd have to go, player by player to see if this team is more talented than a typical Eddie Jordan team. But the reality is, results-wise, they're not as bad as an Eddie Jordan team. That being said, their 2 wins are in overtime to 2 of the worst teams in the Big Ten. Okay, when they play a team with a pulse, we saw what happened in Champaign, where Illinois could have won by 50 if they wanted to.
Oh, that's right. Did they play that game between those two? That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I think everyone erased that from their memory.
Yep.
And pretended that it didn't happen. And they have 7 straight games against really good teams, and the worst team in that bunch just beat number 1 Michigan in Ann Arbor. So before we go too high on this cliff, Steve, let's see how the next 7 games go. Your second point, Tariq Francis would not have made that team make the NCAA tournament. It's one thing to be positive on him and say he's better than we expected. I won't disagree there. Rutgers had Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, guys who the one thing they could do, we can all agree on, is score the basketball. They don't need an inefficient 40% 2-point, 50% 2-point shooter to fix those issues. Okay. Now, Tariq Francis is better than we expected. Rutgers he's essentially the same player at NJIT in that he has the ball in his hands a ton. The coach is telling him, "Here, son, take the ball, do whatever you have to do to score." And
of course,
he's doing it. He's shooting 50% on twos, which is 10% higher than he did at NJIT last year, right? If you're going to take a bunch of inefficient mid-range jumpers, which Chris Collins said that was the strategy. You can't let him get to the layups, can't let him get to the rim. As long as he's taking these step-back jumpers and mid-range jumpers, we live with that. And if he makes them, he makes them. You tip your cap. I don't think that's a winning strategy long-term. It obviously worked against Northwestern and Oregon because he was making them, right? And if he's going to shoot 50% on mid-range jumpers, I guess you let him take them all day. I have my doubts on whether that is a sustainable strategy. And he's getting to the free throw line.
Sustainable. Like, now you want sustainable? Come on.
And he's getting to the free throw line, to your fourth point, which is, to make free throws, you have to get to the free throw line. And he has a good free throw rate. He took 9 free throws on 22 field goal attempts. You'd probably want that ratio to be a little closer, a little bit more free throws. But he's making his free throws. To counteract your free throw point, Rutgers is winning games on the free throw line, yes. Rutgers is almost losing games on the free throw line. Darren Buchanan twice could have won the game in regulation and in overtime.
Look at Northwestern, the brick fest on the other side. That's been Rutgers over the years. That team, that one, when they should have won the game on overtime on the free throw line. Northwestern
and regulation,
absolutely. Yep.
So yeah, fair. I guess we could say fairly that they beat Oregon on the free throw line. They shot 30 of 34. Right, aside from the Lino Mark miss at the end, barring them going perfect, that was never going to happen. This game, they won it on the free throw line because Northwestern didn't. And then on Darren Buchanan, I'm sorry I'm going long on this, but you made a lot of points that I
did make a lot of points.
I feel like I'm trying to deflect a bunch of things. Darren Buchanan made a clutch block, no doubt. Darren Buchanan looks better than he has all season. Was clutch in overtime against Oregon as well. He shot 4 of 13 from the field. The only reason he had to make that clutch block was because he missed the free throw. He missed the free throw in regulation. Of his 4 made field goals, 2 of them were mid-range jumpers where he was at the three-point line, literally stepped into the three-point line and shot a mid-range jumper. Just because that shot went in doesn't mean I was pulling my hair out in the press box thinking, what are you doing? What are you doing? That is the exact shot moment Northwestern wants you to do.
I know you weren't watching it on the TV, but there was a great moment during the broadcast of this game where the Peacock guys, after that shot, I think it's after that, or one of those shots, the Peacock guys are talking, well, we talked to Steve Peichel about this, and while most of basketball is 3 or a layup, he's okay with these shots. And then, I swear, 30 seconds later, they cut to the huddle of Northwestern, and there's Chris Collins, and he's like, look, if they're going to take these 18-footers, I'm okay with that. I was like, well, that's good. Both coaches agree on this point that we're okay with taking Jared Buchanan taking 18-footers. I just laughed my ass off because Collins is like, look, you gotta stop letting Francis get to the basket. If 4 wants to take an 18-footer, go ahead. That's fine. It was great. It was just a wonderful moment.
That kind of says it all, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. It says, look, Rutgers has, I think I've said this stat last time. They rank, shout out to Ken Palm for adding this stat. They rank 354th nationally in average 2-point length. So the average distance of their shot from inside the arc is 7.6 feet. There are only 11 teams in the country that take further shots on average. And they took, per Bart Torvik, Rutgers has played, 17 games so far? They have taken, where is the number? 312. 312 mid far twos, which are non-rim twos. So it was good enough to win games against Northwestern and Oregon. Again, two of the worst teams in the Big Ten, Oregon without its best player, in overtime. I'm not sure it's quite a sustainable strategy to win many Big Ten games, but it's more than zero.
It's more than zero. Yes. Yeah. And I think it's nice to get this all out of the way here with us talking the happy talk, because looking at the schedules, it might be a minute now. It might be a minute now before we're having the happy conversation. It gets hard. We did see them against Illinois, and that was ugly. That was just a different level of ugly. It was something, like 25 points you down that in the first half, I think. I don't know exactly what it was. And then you look at that shot clock, a shot chart that went around the internet. It's just, look, there are 8 really, really good teams in the Big Ten. They're going to get obliterated by those teams. Illinois is one of them. It's just not a surprise, there it is, the shot clock, a shot chart. If you can't see it, it is just, a bunch of orange right around the rim, and then a bunch of orange around the arc, and then nothing, not a single, how does that, not even by accident, a shot that's not in those two spaces. Meanwhile, the Rutgers side of it is just lots of empty zeros in all different places. It's just a mess, a hot mess. Yeah.
Now, if you look at the shot chart from the game last night, this was essentially the same two teams going against each other.
It really was. Wow.
And the difference was Northwestern had Nick Martinelli, who's more of a taller guy, but he's taking mid-range jumpers for some reason, and Tariq Francis. And
right. the Martinelli can have a green light wherever he wants to take. Yeah, that's different. He's like one of the nation's leading scorers. He can take all the shots he wants.
Correct. Steve Pikiell called him a professional scorer. And the numbers were pretty much equal on threes, were almost equal on the free throw line, were almost equal at the rim, and it was exactly the same game. It was just both these teams took horrible shots, and Rutgers just made one or two more bad shots. Which when you play games like that and you play this way, both of them play inefficiently. That's kind of what it comes down to. But yes, to your point, let's run it by again just one more time. We've done this like 4 episodes in a row, but they play at Wisconsin, at Iowa, versus Indiana, versus Michigan State, at USC, at UCLA, versus Nebraska.
Yeah.
They don't play a winnable game again until February 15th. Now, could they win one of those games? It would not shock me. Like if they picked off one of the LA teams, it would not shock me. But
I'd be
2 of those
surprised.
wins would be shocking.
Yep. No, that's rough. That is certainly a rough stretch. And, to points that were being made in the Discord when I was singing the praises, when I was, by the way, doing exactly what I said I wouldn't, which was, pat them on the head for winning these games. But that's okay. At least I'm acknowledging it. The point being they have not shown the ability to win on the road, which is, of course, where you're going to Wisconsin now, you're going to Iowa, you're going to California. Yeah, it's going to be rough. At least there will be. We will see if any of these 2 overtime wins at home, any of these grittiness, any of this translates to, it shows some improvement. Don't get 81-55 like you did against. Right? Oh, hello. Have a better effort in Wisconsin. You've got a full 5 days. Go out there, make it a game. Wisconsin just played a really great game against Michigan. Show that you're capable of at least competing.
Yes, I apologize for the dog. I can't really control that. That's why I think these 2 wins were so important, not because they reversed the expectations of the season or whatever, but they turned what could have been, a really ugly record, right? Like if they lost these 2 games, they currently own 6. They lose those 7 games, possibly be 0-13.
It'd be,
Right. So now you go from, again, a potentially historically bad season to you have a little bit of momentum, you have a little bit of something to hang your hat on. People will still show up to the rack with some hope of, them stealing a win or not. And you go from having, the rock bottom, right, potentially, to having a not so bad season. Are they meeting the expectation one would have of a coach in the Big Ten with the salary Pikiell's making, the 11th or 10th year of him being here? Like, are they at meeting expectations for that from a big picture level? Absolutely not. But if we're looking at it from where the roster is, how they looked earlier in the season, our expectations coming into the year and after the first month, they're doing better than we could have expected, which, that's worth what it's worth. But it's better. Again, we've said this a couple times already this episode. It's better to be, 15th or 16th than to be 18th and fighting against, Eddie Jordan comparisons.
All right. Last point on basketball before we move to football. If I were gun to your head here, over under now is at 5 for the entire season. Which way you going? Under, so over, or 5?
4.5 or 5.5?
5. You can say 5 if you want to. Over, under.
I can push and just say 5.
You can push and say 5. Yeah. That's why I picked it, because that's a very precise number.
And we said that. I think that was our prediction, both of us.
Yeah.
So if you look at the last 7 games, 6 of them are winnable, right? They're not going to beat Michigan State at the Breslin Center, barring a miracle. But they can win any of the 4 Penn State, Maryland games, Minnesota, or Washington.
Yep.
So you're saying if they win half of those games, they win 5. And that, even that sounds a bit ambitious, but you know what? I'll go exactly 5.
You go exactly 5? I think I might go the over. As crazy as that sounds. So that for me, that means splitting Maryland, Penn State, and getting a cut and getting 2 other wins. So you're going to beat Washington at home. Is that possible? Yeah, 5 is kind of the number now. I think about it. You're right. Yeah, because you're going to win at Minnesota. You would steal one. You would steal one someplace else. I think that's possible for this team. I really do.
I think for them to exceed 5, they have to win a majority of the Maryland Penn State games.
You think that to win 3? So you don't think they're going to be able to steal? It's a big ask. Obviously, Penn State. A lot of these higher level teams are forget it's. Michigan State's, those teams like that. Even Nebraska now is a wagon. But yeah, you can't steal at Minnesota. You can't steal there are many of those. So
they can, right? And every game is its own independent event, right? And let's not fall into the the momentum stuff or whatever. But my look at is that Rutgers has won its 2 winnable games, right? And now it has 6 more winnable games. Are they going to win, 5 of those last 6? Like, it just doesn't seem likely that Rutgers just keeps, winning all of its 50-50 games, right? Much like we did with football in 23 or whatever. So I just think that the likelihood is that I think they win. So how many of those are home? They have 2 games at home, Maryland and Penn State. Mm-hmm. They have Washington at home.
And Minnesota's on the road. Yep.
Right. So they have 3 more winnable home games. Again, winnable. Which is until I see them win on the road, like good Rutgers teams have lost at Minnesota. Rutgers has lost a Big Ten NCAA tournament bid against a much worse Minnesota team at Minnesota. So I'll say 3 is the number. And that's just expectation. So that if they win 6 or 7, then I might be really surprised.
All right. The good news is, though, and I mean this as good news, that we are not subjected to the narrative, to the story dominating the winter of like, oh, they're going to win one. Like it's 0-13. Oh, they got 7 chances. That's over. They're better than that. And I do mean like just the Just Suck Normal podcast. Hello, everybody. Just welcome back to the Just Suck Normal podcast. We have achieved our goal. Just sucking normal. So congratulations.
Well, Just Suck Normal in the records right now. Just for people's perspective, Rutgers is currently 156th on KenPom. I know some people don't really appreciate KenPom, but the next closest team in the Big Ten on KenPom is Maryland at 123, which is
Maryland's higher than Rutgers on KenPom.
Maryland is 33 spots higher than Rutgers, and the next closest team after that is Penn State at 105. So Penn State is 51 spots above Rutgers. Rutgers is by the efficiency metrics, the worst team in the Big Ten.
Okay.
But they're 2-4 in the Big Ten. So I guess it depends on what side of the glass you look on. You look at results right now, or you look at the predictive metrics and look at the schedule ahead and think, let's pump the brakes on saying Tariq Francis is an all Big Ten player and that he would have carried Rutgers to the NCAA tournament last year.
All right, I'm going to let you have the last point there. Let's move on to football. And this is the other thing about, the portal's been open. We have been following it. There's been a lot of news. Why don't we just start with that? Why don't we recap with the latest couple? Got a running back from Louisiana Tech, a position. Obviously, they need another body in the room after losing a couple of guys. Take us through the last few portal acquisitions before we break into our analysis here.
Sure. So last night, right after the basketball win over Northwestern, Clay, I don't have it. Thevenin, I think is how you pronounce his last name. Louisiana Tech running back. He comes in and fills in for the spots left by Sam Brown and CJ Campbell, and he will. I think we all agree. There's no real dispute that Antoine Raymond is going to be the guy and take a majority of the carries. But this kid will compete with Jashawn Benjamin and the other younger guys in the room, Terrell Mitchell, Ed Guerrier, for the backup snaps. Right. So I think Rutgers already felt pretty good about its depth there. So you had a body there, a guy who was productive at the lower level, to add some depth there. They added linebacker Ty Morris from Rice, and I believe that'll be the last linebacker they add. There's a lot of bodies in that room already between Moses Walker and Abram Wright coming back. Some younger guys like Kamar Archie and DJ McClary, who you hope by year 2 they're more physically prepared and had a year in the system. They can compete for some time. And then they added a defensive back, Bradley Jones, the second corner they've added. He's from the Citadel. Blazing speed, runs a 10.3 100 meter. Wow. But he has 0 interceptions in something like 600 career snaps at cornerback for the Citadel. That's not a particularly encouraging stat to me. No. So they're at 11. They're at 11 right now, and the portal has been open for 10 days. It closes on Friday.
Right.
Now, it closing doesn't mean Rutgers can't sign more players. It means that players can no longer enter, and that's aside from the players in the national championship game, because I think they have a 2-week window after the championship game ends.
Correct.
But other than that, the last people to get off the boat will be Friday, and that counts also for players at Rutgers, right? So I think Rutgers feels pretty good about where things stand with the rest of their roster right now. But for certain, once midnight hits on Friday, that you're safe.
That's a good point. And I think people mistake that. And by people, I mean me. You think this is going to be over on Friday? It's not. They're still going to be signing players through for a while. So, but let's just say we're getting near the end. I don't know what the number is for the number of players Rutgers wants to add. 11? Is it 15? Is it what do you think? Do you have a guess?
Well, we have to go position by position, see what their needs are, and see if anyone else leaves. Last year, I think the number was 18 to 20. The last 2 or 3. Yeah, but some of those were just depth pieces and just flyers, right? Like a kid like Dane Partridge was a complete flyer. It didn't work out, but it didn't really cost you anything. So, and then you have to look at how much of these kids of the current 11 are depth guys, developmental guys, flyers, so to speak, versus like I have to think that Rutgers is still going to get higher end guys to complete the class, right? Like the guys that they currently have can't be the headliners, and then you fill out the rest. This has to be kind of the floor, whereas there's more guys coming in, because if this is the best of what you get for the portal haul, I would say that's pretty alarming about what the season is going to look like.
That's what I was going to say, because right now it feels very meh. And I don't and I don't know. Like, you don't know what some of these guys are going to turn out. There's a bunch of guys who fit the bill. They look physically. They've got the right numbers on the roster. Some 6'4", 300-pound guys. They've got some size. But again, I come back to this: Rice, Appalachian State, Delaware State, Eastern Michigan, Citadel, Maine, Ball State, Toledo, Villanova. I understand that is where Rutgers has shopped in the past. That's probably where Rutgers is going to shop in the future. And it works. I mean, it's not like there's not good players at that level. Go to the NFL draft. Year after year, you see good players drafted from these teams. Now they're moving up from these teams to a higher level. getting paid for it. I completely understand. The recruiting's an inexact science in high school. Now these players are even getting ignored even more because higher level programs are taking them. When I understand all the reasons why there's a lot of guys at that level. That said, I do believe too that there's got to be a couple of home runs here at the end, or I've got some concerns over the level, and especially defensively, and especially at the key positions that we've talked about ad nauseum on defense.
I think they have a decent start along the defensive line with Rondo Porter at defensive tackle and Malachi Davis at defensive end. But I think they need an addition or two at each of those positions, at a higher level to be able to do that. That's obviously easier said than done. Edge rusher is, as we've said many times, one of the more sought after positions, but they've lost a lot of bodies there. They don't have any particularly promising well, they do. They have Whitey Collier, he's entering his second year and he's still 17. So I don't know if he's quite there ready physically or maturity wise to be like a go-to guy at that position. I think you need to get a veteran proven defensive end. And I think that's one of the priorities they still have.
Yep.
And then, I agree. Like they haven't gotten a safety. I'm a little befuddled by that.
Stunned by that. Yep.
Unless they think that there is, a development player in the pipeline that can take the next step, or there is the other possibility with the defense. If you really want to look half glass full here, Rutgers still has not hired its defensive coordinator, right?
Oh, really? No.
Now,
I hadn't noticed.
It's anyone's guess to what is happening here. Do they have a person? It hasn't been announced yet for some reason. Are they still looking? Like whatever. If you want to be half glass full, the person that they plan to hire has players at his current program that he could bring with him. For example, in Indiana and Miami are playing in the national championship game. None of those guys can enter the portal, obviously. Well, they can. Oregon had a couple guys enter the portal while they're in the playoff, but these are actually well-run programs, and they don't have guys just leaving in the middle of a playoff run. Let's say a guy from Indiana or Corey Heatherman isn't coming to Rutgers. I'm not saying that. But let's say one of the coaches from one of these teams comes to Rutgers, and they bring 3 or 4 or 5 guys from that roster. Now,
how about the Jacksonville Jaguars? Can they bring 3 or 4 guys from that roster? That's also a possibility this way?
No, I don't think so. Though it's not quite basketball where you can hire a 36-year-old with 4 kids. But I don't know if there's anyone from the Jaguars that are, Anthony Campanelli is probably going to get he's going to get head coaching interviews, right? And the other guy on that coaching staff you think is Tem Lukubu, who has been, he has a permanent spot on every defensive coordinator hot board for the end of time. But I just don't see why he would leave the NFL when he's ascending.
Pick the team at random. I have no idea who's on the team. Yeah, I understand. Right.
Well, you picked a team at random that just happens to have 2 very interesting prospects that are connected to Rutgers. But anyway, okay, I guess the point is like, I know we've preached patience and how the haul is going to finish, and I still think that, if they're able to if they have guys in their back pocket, up their sleeve, if there are some things that we don't know that will be revealed, then maybe the current portal haul is understandable. But if this is kind of it, if there's going to be rounded out with more guys of this caliber, then I would be pretty concerned about, I don't care if you hire who's the greatest defensive coordinator of all time, like Phil Parker from Iowa, or if you hire like a really high level defensive coordinator, I would still be concerned about where this defense is going to look like in 26.
Right. The DC thing, I know we've discussed it. I thought, and my strong opinion was to go out and get the best person you could find for this job. Disregard philosophy, find someone to be your Kirk Shiraka for the defense, preferably someone who you don't have a long history with. Find some new ideas. This is what I thought was important to do. Greg Schiano clearly disagreed. He did not do that, did not go out and did it, has had a month and a half now to do it. That's not going to happen. So the next thing now at this point, you just want to find someone who's got a good scheme, a good defensive mind, a good coach, a single person. Last year, they didn't have that. They had confusion. They had 2 guys. It was a disaster. So, all right, that's the next. Now you just hope that they can find someone who can work with Greg, who, somebody. Because the third thing that could happen, I think, is a really bad idea. And that is Greg Schiano saying, screw it, I'm going to do it myself. And it's not because I don't think Greg Schiano can't do it. He's been a defensive coordinator. He'd be a good one. But I just come back to this in this day and age of college football, when the head coach has to be a CEO for all of these reasons. Like, you're a general manager and a head coach. You're a recruiter. It's a harder job than an NFL coach at this point. It really is. It's more demanding of your time. You're dealing with the media. You're dealing with roster stuff. You're dealing with classroom stuff. That's all of that stuff is still the head coach's responsibility. More players than the NFL. Like, there are a million reasons to do that and then be responsible for trying to figure out the Wisconsin run game on a random Thursday afternoon. I just think it's a bad idea. So if that's what it is, then I have really big concerns. And you would hope either someone around him, trusted allies, trusted people who in his circle can say, hey, Greg, don't do that. Or Kelly Zinn can say, hey, Greg, don't do that.
I don't think Kelly Zinn has the cachet to tell Greg what
Well,
to
why
do.
not?
I just don't.
Well, I think she does. Absolutely. You've got to pick your spots. But she's been around big programs. I don't know. She was at LSU. It's her job.
Maybe. I think, and this is a bit flippant, but if Greg Schiano decides he wants to coordinate the offense, I don't think Kelly Zinn can tell him not to do that. It's his program, right? And I think you're kind of undermining the head coach if you do that.
I'm not
right?
saying tell him not to do that. I think that if enough people say, hey, Greg, you shouldn't do this. If he still does it, you're right. I don't think you're drawing the line in the sand and saying, this is it. You must do it. I understand. I think there's a difference there between, people speaking out to make sure he doesn't do it. And I'm not saying he is. Like, I don't know. It just seems like the longer we go, the more that becomes a possibility.
I agree. And I agree with your sentiment. Unless, for some reason, Rob Smith is coming back for a fourth time. Greg being the DC would be preferential to that. Or Rob Smith adjacent. But I think, let's not dive too much into the weeds of a hypothetical here. I do think if Greg names himself the DC, that would be a bad sign of more control, like just a continuing tighter grip on everything, which is why I don't think it'll happen. But it is maddening that it's been a month and a week and, realistically 3 months since he knew he was going to fire Rob Smith. And again, if it's someone on the national championship competing teams and they just had to wait for it, whatever, and it's a young and up and coming guy or, whatever, then you can justify it. If it's a home run hire, then the wait and essentially not having a DC for the entire transfer portal window is somewhat understandable. But if it's not that, then I'm scratching my head on. It's just, it happens every time they hire a defensive coordinator. It just takes forever. And I just don't know why. Look, maybe other programs take this much time and I don't pay this much attention, but it feels like a uniquely Rutgers thing that these things just drag on and on and on. But ultimately what will matter is who is hired.
And I think we know why it dragged on last year. They had a couple guys in mind, thought they couldn't get them. Then, a million things happened along the way, and it ended up settling for Rob Smith at the end, right? I think I kind of understand that, and I think there's a feeling this time. This is my sense that they cannot make a mistake in this hire again. And I think there's a program wide feeling of acceptance that was a mistake, that was a bad hire, and this is not a place that often, admits to screwing things up. They know they screwed that up last year. And they don't want to do it again. They want to make sure they get the right guy. They feel like they have to. This is a really important hire. So I understand that part of it totally, that maybe it'll take longer. Maybe that's the reason. Like, I don't know, if we go back to Greg Schiano 1.0, was this a problem? I don't think anybody was paying attention to it back then to really have a good answer. Does it happen at other places? I have no idea. This is a good transition. One of the questions was exactly that. Currently, the longest it has taken any DC hire in FBF this offseason was Boston College at 25 days to hire Ted Roof, which in itself is an amazing development in Boston. Why does this seem to be such a uniquely Schiano problem? It is very interesting, and if that's true, that it's going to take twice as long here for this to happen in Piscataway. It is interesting. It certainly is very interesting.
It's possible that they have a guy and it hasn't been made public, which, I mean, that's infuriating for us, I guess. And it doesn't really make sense to me.
What's the reason? On the Miami staff is the only thing I can go. NFL staff, I guess, current in the playoffs, I guess.
That's the only reason, is someone still in the playoffs in the NFL or on Miami or Indiana staff. That's the only reason. Right. And one could say, well, Oregon had 2 coordinators that were named head coaches, and they were still coaching their team, and happened at Ole Miss. Being named a head coach is, I think, a little different than being named a coordinator. When you're a head coach, you're the guy, you control everything, and the other program needs you, right? Like a defensive coordinator at Rutgers is not something that has to be made public. But I don't know. Whatever. I guess to transition back to the transfer portal. I guess if you had to give a grade for where you feel the haul is right now, 11 guys, the positions they've gotten, the talent they've gotten, just where would you grade the portal haul? And actually, I'll start with the portal haul. The guys they've gotten, only those 11. Where would you grade them right now?
So we're taking out KJ Duff and Antoine Raymond. We're not.
Yes,
the retention.
Not the portal class in general in either direction. Just the guys they've gotten.
C. It's a C. C plus maybe.
I think it's a C. I agree. There's no like high end guy. Like there's no
guy. Exactly. That's what I mean. There's no guy where you're like, oh wow. It's just kind of like, oh, okay. Like, I mean, honestly, and some of these guys might turn out to be, oh wow, that was a really good get. But right now, the only thing you have to go on, like, obviously these recruiting sites trying to do the same thing they do for recruiting classes now that they're doing for portal. I've seen it ranked in the 50s. Like I looked for, I was curious where it was, and I think it was on 3. And I scrolled, scroll down to the bottom and had to click next page of lists to get to Rutgers. So bottom of the Big Ten, bottom 5 or 6 in the Big Ten. Certainly not as bad as Maryland. And I get it; they're not going to be in the top. You're not going to be in the top 10 in this. This is not the business of Rutgers is not paying $5 million for a quarterback. I understand all that, but yeah, I mean it's concerning. And that part of it, to see that, to kind of get the sense, and so it's not just us think it's average; it is experts.
Yes, and those things aren't gospel, but they are certainly good measuring sticks, right? Like more often than not, they're kind of accurate. They're pretty accurate, I should say. I would agree with a C. Again, the jury's still out. There's still a week or whatever. Like I'm not gonna condemn this this portal haul to a 4-8 season or whatever, but I would like to see more. I would like this to be creating a base, and the end of the portal cycle be building, higher end spots. I still would like to see a wide receiver to replace Ian Strong. I would like to see at least one defensive tackle and edge rusher who could play a lot of snaps.
And we know they missed on some. We know they missed on a wide receiver, the Utah State guy. We know they've missed on guys who they were targeting, who would have been like, right. So
correct. And it's a possibility that there are guys that have been on campus that we have no idea about. Like there's probably a dozen of them or whatever. Like these things are, we know about the guys that committed and they were on campus. But now, what would you say about as of right now? I mean, again, there's 4 days left. Guys can still leave, but the retention. How would you grade the?
I mean, I think you got to give that. I think you got to give that a B plus, A minus. I mean, I thought you had, and I understand like Taj White, guys like that, they were surprised by. But for the most part, I think the guys who left were guys who were kind of like, all right, Sam Brown, go get some carry someplace else, go to Temple. I don't think there were a lot of like Bo Maskelly would have kept. I think some of these guys, it was $1. They put a figure on some of these guys, and that's the business now. I mean, people are going to look for Ian Strong. I think we might look back and say he made a mistake. I think he was looking for a better quarterback. Maybe that might be the new theory out there. Like he wanted to be the guy with a NFL quality quarterback at Cal. But I don't know that that's going to work out for him. We're going to see that's a bad team in a rebuild for him. Some guy, you just can't control that. You can't make decisions for these guys. So I think it's probably a B to B plus for the retention. You kept 2 of your 3 most important guys. You?
Yeah, B plus. An A would be if you kept Ian Strong. But yes. And then Taj White would have been nice to have his depth, but they have enough tackles where I think like Taj White staying or going isn't going to make or break anything. Right. Ian Strong, we can go on to that later on in the year, but I think it's a good situation for him personally. I don't know if he'll have more team success than he would have at Rutgers, but better quarterback, much easier competition than the Big Ten. And it's his last year, so he'll be able to put up some numbers. And maybe he didn't get I don't think his payday it certainly wasn't better than what Rutgers was offering. I don't think it was that much lower. So you sacrifice a little bit of that for more personal numbers to maybe boost your stock. I think it'll end up being fine.
All right. We've managed to answer just about every single question that people have submitted for the question segment. Congratulations to us. Except one, and this is a good one. Someone wanted to know Anthony Knox, the new wrestler, what happened and why did he leave Cornell? I think it's really fascinating. That, in a lot of ways, was the most interesting thing that happened at Rutgers last week. I know we're saving it for the 40th minute of the podcast, but Anthony Knox, if you're not familiar, if you don't follow wrestling, a 4-time New Jersey state champion, became, a polarizing figure in the sport during his champion's pursuit, went into the crowd, punched the kid in the face, was arrested for assault, still facing those charges. Sued the state, got reinstated, won the championship. I mean, it was a big thing. Our website might have done 1 to 179 stories on it if you didn't miss that last fall. But yeah, for Rutgers, he was at Cornell. And I think pretty much what happened here, he wanted to come back, stay at home. And also, Rutgers can now afford him. Like that, if you read this interview, you should go read it. Joseph Dallas, who's known Scott Goodale forever, talked to him about this. And it's just sort of a fascinating thing. Like, first of all, making no apologies about taking a kid facing assault charges right now. Like, we need good athletes. That was pretty much, they talked about it. They were not concerned about it, number one. And then number two, the figure we've heard, about $200,000 for a wrestler, that was something they weren't going to be able to do last year. Now they are in a position because of Kelly Zinn, because of the new way that this place is operating as a fully professional sports organization. They're hiring one of the best wrestlers in the country. It's kind of a fascinating turn where this has gone on a lot of levels for Rutgers. What was your thoughts, Brian, when this news broke?
Yeah, Rutgers isn't afraid to do what it takes to win now, right? Like I can't. Yeah. We can't know for certain what would happen with previous administrations, right? But this kid does have some red flags, even if I think there was some exaggeration in the way this kid was painted, right? Like this kid isn't a hardened criminal. He made a mistake, whatever, and not to excuse what he did. Obviously, it wasn't inexcusable, but I don't think what he did was exactly something that should bar him from society, right? So, but no, he does have.
But it is a risk. I mean, taking him is a risk. I think. I don't think there's a calculated risk. Certainly, like I would if I were Scott Goodale. I would. Yeah, of course. Like you're not getting Rhodes Scholars at every turn here, but still, I mean, this could backfire.
No doubt, right? And I'm not trying to minimize all of that, but my point is like, if you want to win at the highest levels, sometimes you got to make decisions like this. And this kid is the first one at Rutgers since Suriano and Ashnault that has a chance of winning a national championship, right? Amazingly, like New Jersey has had 5 4-time state champions. And 4 of them have ended up at Rutgers. 2 of them won a national championship. One of them, I can't pronounce his last name. It was very long in Italian. Anthony Kama something. That one didn't work out, but he came to Rutgers at the tail end of his career. And Anthony Knox could follow in the legacy of Suriano and Ashnault and inject some life back into this program, right? Like we've talked ad nauseum about, them kind of not stabilizing, what's the word? Flatlining, whatever. Like they have not been getting signature wins in dual meets at home. They've been kind of flailing it in the NCAA tournament. They haven't had a big time wrestler in a while. So this will get some juice into the program. It'll get people in the building. It'll inject some life. So why he left Cornell, which was the question, I don't know for certain. I think we're doing some reporting on that, but I think it's a win for Rutgers to get this kid. He won't wrestle until next year. I know there's some confusion there. Right. He was gray shirting this year anyway, so he's not going to wrestle until 26. But this is one of the more high-profile athletes Rutgers has had on campus since Ashnault and Suriano. Not quite Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, but up there.
Right. Yeah. And there's no guarantee that he's going to wrestle more than 1 year for Rutgers. I don't think that. But that is true now for every single athlete that steps foot on campus. So you can't cross that off the list if you leave Cornell before you even step on the mat. And I don't know, if I'm Cornell, I can only imagine, you stuck with this guy during a lot of bad publicity, and you're an Ivy League school, for him to not even step on the mat for you, that's got to, I don't know. You would think that would leave a bad taste for the folks up there. But yeah, I
was gonna say, I'm curious about like the legal issues. Like, did that have any bearing on, Rutgers is a high institution of learning or whatever, right? But Cornell's Ivy League, right? Like, yeah. Were they waiting on the results of his legal issues to figure out before he could be admitted? Like, is that a
I don't
possibility?
think
Or
so. I don't get that sense. I mean, they took him. They knew he was facing these charges. I think there's a universal. I mean, he's not going to be thrown into prison for this like it is a misdemeanor. The charges will be. I think the outcome of this is he will pay a fine. Right. This is like so. It is just poor judgment. And I think there's some obviously. With the dad as well. I think there's some family things here. The dynamic is just a little. Okay. You're getting a lot with this. This is not a streamlined situation. There's you're inviting something to your program that could become a problem. But as we've said, risks you take for someone who can win a national championship at Rutgers.
yes, correct. Rutgers has had a lot of squeaky clean athletes over the years that have not done much. So sometimes it's worth taking a risk on something like this. And look, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I think it's a clear sign that Rutgers is willing to go the extra mile that programs that win do. Right?
Yeah. Yep. You're playing in the deep end of the pool. All right. A couple of other what else's. I didn't want to go this podcast without mentioning the death of Dick Cody, former governor, served for 14 months. A guy who I just can't think of anybody who I've talked to more often over the years. Just about sports, about a variety of topics. He was involved in every single thing. A huge Seton Hall fan, but someone who, was involved at Rutgers. He was there at the bowl game. Fooch, our friend, told a great story to me as I was talking to him about this, that, he was at the first bowl game that Arizona State, when they played out in Arizona. And, the governor of the state says to Fooch, which is I love that. The governor says to Fooch, do you want to get dinner after the game? And Fooch is like, let's get some dinner. And so they go to Denny's. I wish he were here to tell the story. And of course, because he's the governor of the state of New Jersey, he's got a security detail. And the New Jersey state troopers got to go in and case the joint to make sure that there's no bombs at the Denny's in Tempe, Arizona. And then I'm sure everyone at Denny's was like, what in the world? Who could be walking through that door? And then it's Fooch and the governor of New Jersey. So, I mean, right? Like, can you imagine? You're sitting there in Denny's, you're having a Grand Slam breakfast. You're enjoying your breakfast. It's like, oh, tell me there's New Jersey state troopers. I'm at a Denny's in Tempe. Who could this be? Bruce Springsteen? Could it be, who could it be? Whitney
Houston?
Greg Schiano? No, it's Fooch. And the governor.
It's the governor of New Jersey and the governor of Long Island. Just having a nice stately
Two of the most influential people in the tri-state area walk into the Denny's. So that's hilarious. But the key there, and he was involved in all this stuff. And the first time around with Bob Mulcahy, as they were building the program, he was instrumental. But then the next time around, when this deal blew up, Governor Cody's one of the 10 people who got involved in this, and he's someone who Phil Murphy listened to a lot, and he told Phil Murphy, you gotta throw your weight. You can't let this happen. You've got to get involved in this. And Phil Murphy did. Phil Murphy took his advice to make sure that Greg Schiano was hired the second time around. So a pretty important guy for New Jersey and New Jersey politics and Rutgers.
I will say I was not around for. Well, I was around. I wasn't conscious of politics when he was in government, and so I can't speak to what he did as a governor. But I read your column, and clearly, and Jerry Carino's column this morning as well. Clearly, an influential guy. And Steve Peichel talked about him in the press conference last night. Dick Cody was at a lot of games at the Rec. They got to know each other a bit. So, clearly a guy who cared deeply about sports, and it's nice to see that. A guy who is at the highest level of government and sees a lot of reasons to be cynical, but he still, enjoyed the sports at all levels and their impact on society. So, we're sad to see that news.
And this ties in neatly to another governor, Murphy himself, who has been at the end of his term has been to every game. Governor Murphy has now attended games that you couldn't pay me to go to, and they literally do that. They literally do pay me to go to these games. Like some of these games, he was at Rutgers, Maryland, which you knew, women's basketball game. You knew that was going to be a 40-point game at halftime. It was a 40-point game at halftime. He's at that game. Like, what was he? Do you think there's something going on here? Are they like recruiting him to become like the Goldman Sachs, the sugar daddy? I get it. The NIL's changed, so private donors aren't as influential. But do you think that Kelly Zinn's got a play here, or is he just a crazy fan?
Private donors still have an impact. Let's be clear. NIL hasn't
Well,
changed
right, but
much.
he can't buy a quarterback, and like unless he's got unless he's going to funnel the money through like I don't know.
These guys can figure something out. Let's and by these guys I mean like college athletic departments around the country. Let's not pretend like the College Sports Commission has any teeth. But to your point, it is a little head scratching to me how often he's around. Right, he's around more now than he was when he was a governor trying to buy votes. Like
I know it's amazing.
It's very it does invite that thought, right? Like, is he being courted? Like, is he there for a reason? Is he just trying to kind of take advantage of his last couple weeks of perks as the governor, get those seats?
They'll let him have good seats. I'm pretty certain if you're worth like $100 million, they'll sit you courtside at a women's basketball game.
Just correct. Again, it's the sorry about the dog. It's one thing to go to Rutgers Northwestern and Rutgers Oregon. It's another thing to go to Rutgers Penn for men's basketball, and frankly, any women's basketball game. And he's there. Like, he was there yesterday with President Tate. Kelly Zinn was at women's basketball in Chicago with Northwestern, so she wasn't there. He's there, and I don't know.
She was at. Why was she at that game? Is there something
that I can't speak to why she was there or not. But she posted a video on social media of them on the plane watching the end of the men's game.
I saw that. Was she sitting in the middle seat and coach?
I don't know. I think they're 2 seats, like 2 seat rows. It's a smaller plane. I think they chartered.
They chartered.
But
okay.
We're getting first in the weeds here. My point being,
luxurious.
No, you're fine. If we are, we can have another conversation about aviation on our flying podcast. The thing I was gonna say is, if there are people that you want to court to give a little bit of money, Phil Murphy's got a lot of money, and maybe he is going to miss being an influential guy in New Jersey when his governorship is over, and this is a way to do so. We're just spitballing here; we don't know for certain, but if there's a guy you wanna, what's the word I'm looking for here? Cozy up to, I guess.
Yeah,
he's one of them.
Meanwhile, on that trip to Chicago with the women's basketball team, a 73-54 loss to the other bad, the clearly now Northwestern, the second worst team in the Big Ten women's basketball side, does not bode well for Rutgers. This could be. We were worried about a team going 0 in the Big Ten. This could be the team.
Yes. While the men's team has proven or at least shown so far they're not the worst team in the Big Ten, I think women's basketball has clearly shown they're the worst team in the Big Ten. Northwestern they were the second lowest team in the Big Ten on Bart Torvik, as we had said last week's episode. They, entering this game, had lost 10 games in a row. Oof. They lost at Minnesota by 32 points, and then they beat Rutgers by 19 at home.
Yikes.
Rutgers so far in the last 30 games has lost by 22 points to Ohio State, 47 points to Maryland, and 19 points to Northwestern. Now they play a Penn State team that's beatable. They have more winnable games against. They have 2 games against Penn State, but other than that, pretty rough sledding. Very possible this team goes 0 in the Big Ten.
Yeah, right. And then that makes, I think, what is already a pretty easy decision even easier at that point. It's just you've got to make a change in leadership at that program. It just didn't work.
I think in an ideal world for Kelly Zinn, she gives Coquise another year with NIL, much like she's doing with every other coach in the department. But to your point, if they go 0 and they keep losing games by 40 points, your hands are kind of tied.
Yeah, I think that's becoming pretty clear. So it's going to be a rough winter for them, but not here at the Clearing the Low Bar podcast.
Speaking of clearing low bars,
with the basketball team.
Speaking of clearing low bars, women's gymnastics 4-0. They won
balance beams.
That's good. Exactly. They have won the Ball State Tri last weekend. They beat Ball State in Western Michigan, and they have also beaten Temple and Brockport. So
Simone Biles is really good on the low bar. You've heard that, right?
Apparently, I can't say I watch Olympic gymnastics very often.
Gotcha. All right. Anything else?
I'm trying to think. I don't think so. I think, again, the interesting thing to watch. Okay, gun to your head. Yes or no? Is this the week Rutgers hires a defensive coordinator?
No.
Will Rutgers get over or under 2.5 impact guys in the portal in the next 10 days? Guys that, like you say, clearly make this team better at any position, just 2.5.
Under.
I really want to say over, but I think increasingly the way things are going, unless the theory that they hire someone from Indiana or Miami and those guys bring some guys with them, unless that comes to fruition. And again, we're just spitballing here. It's not a theory that's backed by reporting. It's a theory just we're kind of throwing stuff at a wall.
Right.
Unless that happens, I agree with you that it's probably going to be under.
But we'll have something to talk about at the next podcast to see if it did happen. Let's sign off there. Everyone, thanks for listening to the Positivity Low Bar Clearing, Not the Worst Team in the Big Ten podcast. We'll be back in a week to talk more Rutgers sports.